All right, guys. Shedeur Sanders. Oh man, this was his roughest game yet. I mean, this play was amazing, but he just time and time again tried to make the home run play. And when you do that as a quarterback, you get into bad habits, you make bad reads, you make bad throws. There was, two interceptions, three total interceptions. Two of them, we'll break them down. I just want you to understand that
The Cleveland Browns organization is staring down what many believe could turn into one of the most disturbing internal scandals the NFL has seen in years. Analysts, former quarterbacks, and sharp-eyed fans have been breaking down film and noticing something that feels way off. The growing belief is that the Browns' offensive line may be intentionally blowing assignments to sabotage rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders on game day. What began as quiet chatter has now blown up into a full-scale controversy, serious enough that league officials are reportedly discussing whether this mess warrants an official investigation. This is not about a bad unit struggling to gel or missing blocks by accident. The claims point to something deeper, darker, and far more calculated. On film, there are moments that make no football sense at all. Linemen freeze in place while defenders sprint straight through untouched. Others barely react as Shedeur Sanders takes brutal hits. Instead of urgency or panic, there's a strange calm, like the damage is part of the plan. This goes beyond poor execution and starts to look intentional. Ever since Shedeur Sanders was inserted as the starter during that critical game against the Baltimore Ravens weeks ago, the Browns' offensive line has gone from unreliable to completely unrecognizable. What was once viewed as sloppy has turned into something historically ugly, raising serious questions inside and outside the locker room. When you slow the tape down and really study it, patterns start to jump out. The same breakdowns happen in the same moments, with the same players involved. This does not look like confusion or lack of skill. It looks like certain individuals have decided that making Shedeur Sanders fail is more important than protecting the team, the franchise, or their own futures. Chase Daniel, the former NFL quarterback turned analyst, knows offensive line play inside and out after spending years in league locker rooms.
this is going to get on the coach's nerves, and you can get mad at me for pointing it out all you want. Watch Shedeur first before we get to the back view. After the interception, what are you taught as a quarterback? To not stand there.
When he recently broke down the tape on Shedeur Sanders, what he uncovered raised serious red flags for anyone connected to the Cleveland Browns. Daniel made it clear that the offense as a whole offered little to no support for their young quarterback. And once you watch the specific plays he highlighted, that statement hits hard. Saying the Browns did not help Shedeur Sanders might actually be selling it short. Daniel did point out one moment that stood out in a positive way, highlighting how Shedeur threw himself into blocking on a reverse play. That kind of effort shows a team-first mindset and real toughness, especially from a rookie quarterback. The problem is that effort was never returned. Instead, Sanders has been consistently left exposed, hit after hit, with no sense that anyone up front was fighting for him. The evidence keeps stacking up, and at this point it is difficult to ignore. One play in particular has become the center of this entire storm. Screenshots of the moment have flooded social media, broken down by coaches, former players, and analysts across every major sports show. On that play, offensive lineman number 72 appears to be blocking nobody at all. There is no defender in front of him, no engagement, no movement. He is standing upright and looking directly at Shedeur Sanders as pressure closes in. It creates a chilling question that refuses to go away. Who exactly was number 72 supposed to be blocking? Why is he frozen in place? Why does he appear to be watching the hit happen instead of stopping it? This does not look like a simple mistake or confusion. Watching the play in real time, it looks like an offensive lineman who completely walked away from his responsibility. He is not engaged with a single defender. He is not helping a teammate. He is not even attempting to slow anyone down. He is just standing there, watching pass rushers close in on his quarterback. Plays like this force you to rethink everything you assume about professional football. These are elite athletes, players who have spent their entire lives training to master this position. And yet the video shows someone who appears to be working against his own team's success, but the situation only gets uglier. During the game against the San Francisco 49ers, another moment surfaced that made this whole situation feel even more alarming. It was 4th and 1 near the red zone, a high-pressure situation where execution matters more than anything. What followed looked like a total breakdown across the board. Right tackle Jack Conklin launched himself forward in a strange diving motion that made no football sense, leaving viewers confused about what he was trying to accomplish. Even before that, there was a clear false start in the backfield that somehow went unnoticed by the officials, adding to the chaos.
But here's what the Bears did, man. They did exactly what the Ravens did in their first start. And they decided to bring all-out pressure, stuff all over, and just really test that offensive line. And that offensive line did not play very well.
Then there is left guard Joel Bitonio, a longtime member of the Browns and someone who should be a stabilizing veteran presence on the offensive line. On this crucial 4th and 1 snap, Bitonio did not get beaten by power or speed. He did not lose leverage. He simply went to the ground without blocking anyone. There was no engagement, no struggle, no defender overpowering him. He just dropped to the turf as if his legs gave out. The defender he was responsible for ran through completely untouched. On that same play, multiple defenders reached Shedeur Sanders without a single block slowing them down. This was not bad blocking. This was no blocking at all. When analysts reviewed this play live, their reaction said more than any commentary could. Long pauses, replays running back again and again, voices filled with disbelief as they tried to make sense of what they were seeing. This is not how NFL football is supposed to look at any level. These moments feel less like random failures and more like a pattern forming in plain sight. Fast forward to the most recent game, and the same issues showed up again. That image of number 72 standing still was bad enough, but the live replay makes the situation look even worse when you see the lack of urgency unfold in real time. As the play unfolds, something jumps off the screen immediately. The only player moving toward Shedeur Sanders is his own offensive lineman. Let that sink in. The one person who should be forming a wall of protection is the only body drifting toward the quarterback, while defenders pour through untouched from every angle. Offensive lineman number 72 looks less like a blocker and more like a spectator. Instead of engaging anyone, he appears content standing nearby, almost observing the hit as it happens. This is the kind of footage that should make league executives uncomfortable because it raises real concerns about competitive integrity. When players visibly abandon their responsibilities, when film shows linemen watching their quarterback absorb punishment without resistance, the league cannot afford to look the other way. This situation goes far beyond basic mistakes or poor technique. It moves into territory that feels intentional, and if that is even remotely the case, accountability becomes unavoidable. The stakes are too high for this to be brushed aside as bad football. Things become even more troubling when you look at the response from the coaching staff. Recently, the Browns' offensive line coach addressed the media and went out of his way to praise Joel Bitonio. This is the same player who appears on tape falling to the ground on critical downs and missing assignments at the worst possible moments. The coach highlighted Bitonio's performance from Sunday as outstanding and suggested that outside observers simply do not understand his value. He emphasized Bitonio's toughness in practice throughout the week, even while dealing with injuries, and framed his game day performances as impressive and consistent. That praise has only added fuel to the controversy, leaving many wondering what exactly the coaches are seeing compared to what the rest of the football world is watching. Take a moment to really process what is happening here. The offensive line coach is publicly praising a player whose film shows him going to the ground on 4th and short, allowing defenders to run through untouched, and being part of a unit that has become historically ineffective at protecting its quarterback. There are only a few ways to interpret that disconnect. Either the evaluation of offensive line play inside the building is completely detached from reality, or there is something deeper influencing these public comments. Some around the league believe this praise is a shield for long-tenured players, veterans who are deeply embedded in the Browns' culture and hold influence that a rookie quarterback simply does not have. It is also impossible to ignore reports surrounding Joel Bitonio's stance towards Shedeur Sanders. Multiple sources have indicated that certain veterans on the offensive line were unhappy when Sanders was named the starter, and that frustration has lingered throughout the season in subtle but noticeable ways.
There's only 3 guys in the back, so that means 8 guys at the line of scrimmage. I don't know how the heck anyone would handle this because it's very difficult. They pick it up here and he takes a shot, and I love this. This is the best play of the game, right? This is the type of throw that I think everyone loves about Shedeur Sanders, because what they're doing here, this guy isn't even number 1. He's running a post route through the middle of the defense.
When that reported tension is paired with what shows up on film every week, the picture becomes unsettling. It raises the question of whether these breakdowns are truly accidental or if they reflect a deeper internal conflict. Are some veterans trying to send a message about decisions they disagreed with, or is this the clearest example of a fractured locker room spiraling out of control? From a technical standpoint, the offensive line's performance has drawn heavy criticism from experts who specialize in line play. Analysts have pointed out repeated failures against basic stunts and twists, concepts that every professional offensive line is expected to handle with consistency. When those fundamentals collapse week after week, it suggests a problem that goes far beyond talent or scheme. The Browns' offensive linemen look completely out of sync, Instead of moving as one unit, staying level, and smoothly passing defenders off, they either latch onto a single rusher, while others sprint through untouched, or they drift without blocking anyone at all. One analyst summed it up cleanly, pointing out how painful it is to watch this group try to protect against basic stunts. For pass protection to work, the entire line has to stay connected. That means communication, awareness, and trust across every position. What shows up on film is the opposite. There is confusion, hesitation, and breakdowns that feel less like accidents and more like intentional disengagement. These are not young players learning on the fly. These are seasoned professionals who have spent years in the league and should be executing these schemes without thinking. The scale of these failures pushes the conversation beyond coaching or talent. It forces a harder look at the situation as a whole. The Cleveland Browns are a long-established NFL franchise competing in the most high-profile football league in the world. This is not a rebuilding program short on resources or experience. They employ some of the highest paid athletes in the sport. They operate out of elite facilities with top-tier coaching staffs and every advantage needed to compete at a high level. And yet what keeps showing up on Sundays looks like a unit actively working against its own success. That has led to growing speculation about possible motivations behind this behavior. Some have questioned whether personal resentment toward Shedeur Sanders plays a role, particularly given his last name. His father, Deion Sanders, is one of the most recognizable figures in football history and has never hesitated to speak openly when he believes something is wrong. Whether that legacy factors into what is happening on the field remains unclear, but the question itself speaks to how disturbing this situation has become. Did the decision to draft Shedeur Sanders spark resentment among veterans who felt forced to accept something they viewed as favoritism? Or does this point to something even deeper? An organizational culture in Cleveland that has grown so toxic that some players would rather see the team struggle than admit they were wrong about a rookie quarterback. There is also a financial layer that cannot be ignored. Offensive linemen operate under guaranteed contracts, and their performance directly affects the quarterback's success and long-term health. If certain veterans wanted to see Shedeur Sanders fail, slowing his development or putting him in harm's way, it would serve several interests at once. It would reinforce their early negative evaluations. It could push the organization toward drafting another quarterback, giving them a reset with someone they preferred from the start, and it would shift blame away from the offensive line, allowing the narrative to center on the quarterback instead of those failing to protect him. At this point, the NFL has a responsibility to take a closer look at what is happening with the Cleveland Browns offensive line. This goes beyond typical locker room tension or poor execution. The situation involves repeated breakdowns that expose a quarterback to unnecessary punishment. Shedeur Sanders is absorbing hits that no player should be taking, especially when the film suggests his own protection unit may be contributing to the damage rather than preventing it.
He's able to move, and I thought that Stefanski should have gone for this 4th and 1 because he did a really good job right here. And he actually has a really good feel. You have the back right there. He has a really good feel for pressure. So when pressure's getting in on him and getting close, he has a good way about him to go around pressure.
Every unblocked defender, every snap where Shedeur Sanders is left fully exposed represents a real risk to his career. Repeated hits like these are not just part of the game when they come without protection. If it were ever shown that players deliberately failed to perform their duties and knowingly put their quarterback in danger, serious legal questions would follow. There could be multiple angles to that fallout. Shedeur Sanders himself could potentially argue that he was placed in an unsafe working environment. The Browns organization could explore action against players if deliberate non-performance violated contract obligations. The NFL Players Association would almost certainly become involved if evidence pointed to mistreatment of a rookie that crossed league policy lines. What starts as a football issue could quickly turn into a legal situation that forces the league to rethink how internal team conflicts are handled. What makes all of this especially difficult to watch is the tape of Shedeur Sanders himself. When analysts isolate his play and remove the constant breakdowns in front of him, a different picture emerges. You see a young quarterback who is clearly fighting to make things work. He is processing the field, moving through his reads, showing awareness in collapsing pockets, and trying to create something when protection fails almost immediately. On the reverse play highlighted by Chase Daniel, Sanders even threw himself into a block, showing a team-first mentality that should set a tone in the locker room. Instead of that effort being matched, the film suggests the opposite. Rather than rallying around their rookie quarterback and helping him grow, certain members of the offensive line appear disengaged. That contrast between Sanders' effort and the protection he receives is what continues to fuel concern around this entire situation. They are leaving him completely exposed, watching him absorb hits that never needed to happen. They are putting him in situations where success is almost impossible, regardless of his talent or how well he executes his responsibilities. That kind of behavior cuts against the very foundation of team sports. It breaks the trust that players must have in one another to survive and succeed at this level. The Cleveland Browns now sit at a critical crossroads. They can keep brushing this off as a talent issue or blame it on execution errors, or they can finally acknowledge what the film keeps showing. Something deeper appears to be happening, and confronting it will not be easy. Choosing accountability would mean uncomfortable conversations with long-tenured veterans. It would mean considering moves involving players with significant guaranteed money still tied to their contracts. It would also mean admitting that the organization failed to protect its rookie quarterback and allowed a toxic dynamic to grow unchecked. Ignoring the problem, however, carries even greater consequences. If the Browns continue sending the same offensive linemen onto the field despite repeated evidence that they cannot or will not protect Shedeur Sanders, then the organization becomes responsible for whatever comes next. Continuing down that path invites disaster. If Sanders eventually suffers a serious injury after being left unprotected week after week, there will be no hiding behind excuses or public relations messaging. The responsibility will fall squarely on the organization. The truth is, Cleveland needs a major reset up front. The offensive line requires a full overhaul, starting with upgrades at both guard positions if this situation is ever going to change. The Browns likely need changes at center as well. They need linemen who are fully committed to protecting the quarterback, no matter who that quarterback is. Professional players understand that personal opinions about roster decisions do not justify undermining the team. At the most basic level, they need blockers who can execute standard pass protection without putting their quarterback in danger. The problems do not stop with the offensive line. The Browns also need to take a hard look at the receiving group. Shedeur Sanders needs reliable targets, players who can separate, make contested catches, and force defenses to respect the passing game. Right now, he is operating with a depleted receiving core that offers little relief, combined with protection issues that only make his job harder. The current setup leaves Sanders fighting uphill on every snap. That he has managed to show any positive moments at all under these conditions speaks to his composure and resilience. Those flashes are happening despite the environment, not because of it. If the NFL were to step in, an investigation would likely focus on several critical areas. Players would be interviewed individually to assess locker room dynamics and determine whether there was any coordination or shared intent behind the repeated breakdowns. Independent experts would be brought in to evaluate the film and identify whether the blocking failures reflect deliberate patterns rather than simple mistakes. League officials would also review communications between players, coaches, and front office members to determine whether anyone inside the organization was aware of the issue and failed to act. If an investigation were to uncover evidence of deliberate sabotage, the consequences could be severe and far-reaching. Players involved could face suspensions without pay, possibly stretching across multiple games or even an entire season. Heavy financial penalties would be on the table, and in extreme circumstances, lifetime bans could be considered if it were determined that players knowingly put a teammate's health at risk. The Browns organization itself would not escape scrutiny. Penalties could include fines or the loss of valuable draft picks. If it came out that coaches or executives were aware of the behavior and failed to act, the implications would extend far beyond Cleveland. The precedent set by such a case would be massive. While the NFL has seen locker room disputes and personality conflicts before, this situation appears to exist in a different category altogether. What the tape suggests is not simple disagreement or tension. It looks like coordinated behavior designed to make a specific player fail, regardless of the damage done to team success. If the league fails to respond firmly, it sends a dangerous message. It would tell veterans across the NFL that if they disagree with a personnel decision, they can quietly undermine it without facing serious consequences. There is also a human side to this story that cannot be ignored. Shedeur Sanders is a young man at the very beginning of his professional career. He worked his entire life to reach the NFL, chasing an opportunity to prove he belongs at the highest level. He is trying to justify the belief the Browns showed in him and to make his family proud. Instead of being given a fair environment to succeed or fail on his own merits, he has been placed in a situation where success may be out of reach, no matter how well he performs. Picture what that experience looks like day to day. He studies the playbook constantly. He trains to stay in peak condition. He grinds film, learning defenses and tendencies until exhaustion sets in. He follows every instruction from the coaching staff. He arrives early, stays late, and gives full effort. Then game day comes, and the players whose job is to protect him simply do not. They stand still. They fall down at critical moments. They allow pressure through untouched. They create conditions where failure feels inevitable. The psychological toll of that situation is heavy. Trust is everything in football, especially between a quarterback and his offensive line. A quarterback must trust that when he drops back or turns his back to the defense, his protection will hold. When that trust is broken repeatedly, it changes how the game is played. A quarterback begins to rush reads. He grows hesitant in the pocket. He anticipates hits instead of focusing on execution. Those habits can linger long after the situation changes, even if he eventually finds himself behind a line that actually wants to protect him. That kind of damage is hard to undo. The Browns organization is also taking a serious hit to its reputation. Free agents around the league are watching this unfold. Quarterbacks will think carefully before committing to a franchise that allowed this kind of situation to develop. Offensive linemen may hesitate to join a unit now associated with dysfunction and internal conflict. Cleveland already carried the reputation of a poorly run franchise in the eyes of many. This situation has only deepened those concerns. Rebuilding trust after something like this does not happen quickly. It could take years, possibly decades, to repair the damage. Public reaction has been brutal. Fans from across the league, not just Browns supporters, have shared clips and screenshots highlighting the protection failures. Former offensive linemen have weighed in, many saying they have never seen anything quite like what is happening in Cleveland. The consensus is hard to ignore. This does not look like ordinary bad play. It looks intentional. In the court of public opinion, judgment has already been passed. The remaining question is whether the NFL and the Browns organization are willing to acknowledge what so many others believe is obvious. That hesitation has only intensified frustration among Browns fans who have invested time, money, and loyalty into this team for decades. Since the franchise returned in 1999, fans have endured disappointment after disappointment. Now they finally have a young quarterback with real talent and upside, someone who could stabilize a position that has haunted the franchise for years. Instead of watching him develop, they are watching what appears to be internal dysfunction threaten to derail another potential franchise quarterback before his career truly begins. Browns fans deserve better than this. Shedeur Sanders deserves better than this. The wider NFL fan base deserves better than this. The timing of all of this adds another layer. These revelations are surfacing during the holiday season, a time when organizations often reflect on the past and plan for the future. This should be a period of serious self-examination for Cleveland. Hard questions need to be asked. How was this allowed to happen? Why was it not addressed sooner? What safeguards will be put in place to ensure it never happens again? Polished statements and vague reassurances are no longer enough. The evidence is visible, the consequences are real, and the damage has already been done. At the end of the day, this situation forces everyone to confront an uncomfortable reality. Football is built on trust, accountability, and shared responsibility. When any of those pillars collapse, the entire structure follows. What has unfolded in Cleveland is not just about blown blocks or missed assignments. It is about whether a professional organization upheld its duty to protect its players and preserve the integrity of the game. Shedeur Sanders stepped into the NFL carrying pressure, expectations, and scrutiny from every direction. What he did not sign up for was fighting his own circumstances every single snap. Talent can only overcome so much when the environment is actively working against it. No quarterback, rookie or veteran, can succeed without protection, support, and belief from those around him. Now the spotlight shifts to what happens next. Whether the league intervenes or the Browns take decisive internal action, this moment will define how seriously the NFL treats accountability inside locker rooms. Ignoring it risks normalizing behavior that puts careers and health at risk. This story is far from over. The film will continue to be studied, the questions will keep getting louder, and the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. If you want deeper breakdowns, raw film analysis, and stories the mainstream avoids, make sure you're locked in with Huddle Files. That is where the tape gets slowed down, the narratives get challenged, and the real conversations begin. And you already know, we'll have every second of it broken down, every twist, every leak, every hidden play behind the headlines. So like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share it out. Stay locked in with Huddle Files, where the real NFL stories live.